Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Access of Genius podcast, episode 10. I'm Blake Chalfant, co-host with my dear co-host, David Henry Rickenbach, DH. And we are coming at you, first episode of 2026, the 10th episode of the pod. So it's a big one. And it's really great to be here. 10 episodes. We did a thing. And so with that, I think both of us are resonating a bit coming off of this, a little bit of a break, a little bit of a rest, holiday season. I know you just took 2 weeks off of work. I took some time off of work. And just from our conversations in the back end, I know that there's been a lot of juju moving through, a lot of insight and, different layers of experience that in some ways aren't fully accessible when we're in the normal routine of things that and somehow can only be experienced when we do take extended length of time away. Maybe that's not fully true, but in a way there does seem to be something that is something that can only happen when we do take that time away from the normal routine. So anyway, I want to pass it over to you. You gave a name to it called the winter recess. So I would love to hear you unpack the winter recess, maybe some of the insights that are still with you, how you're coming back into the normal routine again, and anything that feels meaningful to explore.
Yeah. Well, I think something that we share, and I imagine many people who listen to this share, is a sort of joyful anticipation of what the future can be. The sense that, we're on a horizon, we're on a mission, and, we're excited about the future. I feel really optimistic about what the future can hold. And I know just before even hitting record, we're jamming kind of on some of the big things that are going to be moving through. And I say that because for me, a few years ago, the idea of taking 2 weeks off to just fully unplug from work and just be in the weirdness of the holiday season and not have that whole oddity of scheduling clients or scheduling work amidst basically the transition from Thanksgiving to New Year's. It's just kind of a wonky time. I think most people feel like it's a wonky time. So, for years I had this sense of wouldn't it just be nice just to fully unplug for a period of time around specifically the Christmas, New Year's axis. And I think in the past I had a little bit more of that sort of survival mentality running through where it was this sense of, well, I have a dream. I have the sense that I could take time off. Maybe even logistically, I probably could have taken the time off, but something in my system couldn't rest. It felt risky. The survival program was still running. And it felt really pretty remarkable to come into this particular winter and be this actually is the time. This is the time to, fully unplug. This is the time to, give my clients heads up, or, some of my clients gave me heads up and et cetera, just to be okay, I'm gonna take this time off. And the actual experience of going into the winter recess was a little bit of a pinching myself experience because, with the future orientation, one of the things that seems to constantly happen to us, I'll certainly speak from my own experience, is as you achieve a goal or as you actualize a dream, the goalpost just moves. And so, the sense of, oh, I'm in a winter recess, which 3 years ago, this is my dream to live somewhere I love, to be with my partner, to have, a full client stack and just be able to unplug. All my clients were wishing me well. They're oh, you deserve it. Take those 2 weeks off or enjoy yourself. It's just totally blessed up in the vibe. And so this was a fulfillment of a dream, from let's say my 3 years ago self. And yet the movement into the actual unplugging, the movement into a different rhythm was a little bit treacherous. I feel there's some documentation of the struggles as we, are doing these things, which is, 3 or 4 days, a little bit I'm kind of still doing my routine. I'm kind of in this anticipation of am I going to be getting on Zoom soon?
Yeah.
So it was definitely this. It's the perennial parable, right? It's as soon as you arrive into the thing that you said you wanted, are you actually able to be present and enjoy it? Can you receive the satisfaction or the love of a job well done and maybe still nurture the future, all this kind of thing. So I feel like there's more I could double click on in there in terms of like
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
actually did and the whole active recovery process. But maybe I'll
Right.
pause there and just knock it back over to you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, something I definitely want to double click on for you is the idea that like the winter season, wintering doesn't mean necessarily doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that you brought a really beautiful nuance to that because you weren't doing nothing. You know, you weren't sitting around in a bathtub all day long. It was a different quality.
Yeah.
Before I throw that back though, and you can share about that. Um, I love that you got to take 2 weeks off, and hopefully next year it's 3 weeks. You
Woo.
know,
Yeah.
and I saw someone, a friend on Instagram sharing. She it was her in a story, and she said, you know, my only New Year's resolution is that in 2026 I'm gonna be taking off the entire month. It's like December, 4th to January 4th, something like this.
Yeah.
And I feel that. I really feel that vibe. You know, I don't know if I need a month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but like extended period. And like you were talking about, for me, there was a day or two where there was a tension in that transition between the normal routine into the winter recess, more of a resting mode. And just to throw
Mhm.
in again that I would love you to speak to that is so alive for me still is the idea of like resting fields, like
Mhm.
farmland, fields that we're growing things on, like giving them resting periods and
Mhm.
just using that kind of that as the metaphor. Um, but when I think about people who, I see as successful or they have achieved something that I want to achieve, I look up to them in some way. You know, most of these people I feel like are people who have really gotten this down, this kind of winter recess where they know the value of taking these periods of rest, of letting the fields lay fallow for a couple weeks. And for me, like I don't even think I did a great job. I can feel from this season that there's so much more that I can grow into in terms of my ability to winter, which is exciting because man, I just like felt a level of like clarity and envisioning into the future, almost like I've been swimming underwater and then I come up for a breath of air. It's like
Yeah.
and I look above and then I see, oh, I'm actually in this part of the ocean. I'm gonna swim over there, but like that level of clarity and like freshness isn't really available if we're not taking these kinds of breaks. And so,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
anyway, wanted to just share that from my experience. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, man, would love to hear about letting the fields rest, lay fallow. That
Mhm.
maybe that metaphor, and also just like the nuance of wintering, how it doesn't necessarily mean doing nothing, because I know that wasn't your experience.
100%. Yeah. Well, one of the axioms that I've loved living by is this phrase that nature is the best metaphor for the psyche.
Mm,
Nature is the best metaphor for the psyche. So, like, what do we see happen in the winter landscape of nature? All of the plants are pulling their energy in externally. The leaves have dropped. There's no blossoms happening. It's quite literally the plants are drawing their life force into their roots. They're going dormant within. And I think
mm,
that that's a really meaningful representation of what we as humans can do. Perhaps we could even say should do, though I don't think, it's going to be appropriate for everyone at all stages of life or all seasons of life. But the nuance here, which is so interesting, is it's not like we're dying inside. It's not like nothing happens once we've pulled that life force in. We're actually doing something really intelligent to draw that life force in. And that's actually this beautiful opportunity to nurture the life force and enter into like a deeper state of dreaming, but also this idea of the active recovery. And I think one of the things that we just as a culture are learning about is how to do this active recovery thing. We know from, say, sports and recovery that, if you work your body really, really hard, that you're going to need to have some kind of recovery period, otherwise you're going to overtrain. But when it comes to like emotional things, cognitive things, spiritual things, creative lines of development, recovery isn't really understood, but I think there is an exact corollary to physiology. So that's one key point. And the other that I've noticed, as I think we're really developing our articulation specifically to a certain kind of entrepreneurial, audience here, or the post New Age professionals, as one phrase came through recently. One thing I've noticed over the years, being in entrepreneurial circles, people who are, focused on business, focused on growth, is there's this interesting burnout mentality that emerges where you're going, 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 and then you start to imagine, I'm just going to take this vacation and all I'm going to do is sleep, or I'm going to
Yeah.
just finally get to the hammock and it's just this totally black white binary of just, I'm going to go,
Yeah.
go, 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 and then I'll stop. Most of the people who are really deeply driven like that don't do that. And then a health thing will come up, something in life will force them to stop, like a
Right.
health disease or an injury.
Hmm.
But the thing is that that mindset, and like what you imagine when you're pushing really, really hard and that off switch, that is a fantasy. That is not like an actual well-developed ritual, routine, facet of inner development where you actually know how you'll enter into the state and have a system in place for all different sorts of active recovery activities.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beautiful, man. Yeah, I feel like you just laid out an entire blueprint, and I'm curious if you could infuse this blueprint maybe with the story of what this actually looked like for you in this specific 2 weeks. So the active recall, I wanted to hear more about that, and maybe you could give example of your version of this.
Mhm.
And yeah, and just like the system that's in place, this part of your development that's in place for to be able to enter into some of these spaces. Yeah, I would
Mhm.
love to hear, but maybe you can thread the needle with this past 2 weeks for you.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll try to ground it into the practical examples of my life. That's definitely one of my growth edges, is getting into the tangible. But I'll just do one more kind of high level point to drop us in there, which is, I have a deep enduring belief that the kind of primary vehicle of our life force is having a dream. And so this idea of pulling in the life force so that an internal dreaming can happen, I think is really sort of apropos to what for me animates a sense of active recovery. This idea that as I'm shifting from my normal routine, which primarily is just focused on like client work and being on Zoom and doing some external
Right.
stuff on the admin and all that, blah, blah, blah. For me, that the emphasis of turning that all off and then focusing on my internal dreaming, in a way, I didn't train any less than I would in my typical, fall or spring rhythm. It was just that I was able to turn off all the things that would typically draw my attention out. The sort of, we could say, metaphorical leaves, shoots, blossoms, facets of my communication that, pull my energy out onto other people's processes, other people's dreams. And the energy drew into my dream. And so for me, what that looks like right now is just a super all in mentality on learning music. Like most of my mornings, I would do like a wake up kind of, just let myself wake up whenever I wanted to wake up. I mean, for me, not having an alarm is like one of the like key luxuries of life. Like to be
Right.
successful means I can wake up when I want to wake up. And then from that, go into just morning breath work, meditation stuff. There's a whole, rabbit hole there that we won't go into now. But then just straight up 2, 3 hours of music training, just being right in front of the piano, being in front of the guitar, playing with GarageBand, just being in repetitions. And for me, that's feeding my dream. That's feeding my joy so, so, so very much.
Mm. It's
And then
energizing.
so energizing, so replenishing. And so even though there's an energetic output, it's an active recovery in the same way that if you've been doing a lot of physical strength training, that just going for a walk is active recovery. And that's kind of the key nuance, right? Is that you're drawing your energy into things that are energizing, replenishing, but they have like a different mode. So if you've been doing like strength training, active recovery can just be going for a walk or like a gentle swim, where,
Right.
yeah.
Was that the case for you? Or were you doing strength training during your wintering?
For me, one of the other shifts was actually right around when we were hanging out around solstice. I had been pushing a lot of physical strength training, and then I threw out my back, which was kind of a warning sign.
Right.
And then I threw out my back again because I didn't quite get the message the first time. I'd been doing this like high intensity interval training where I was, going into like 20 push-up sets and then squat sets, and then, it's like
Hmm.
running the circuit of this high energy intensity. And my back was just like, hey, like you're pushing on a certain edge that you shouldn't be pushing on right now. So for
Right.
me, part of the active recovery, like winter recess mindset, was just filling my day with what Ido Portal calls movement snacks. So
Mm.
little 3 to 5 minute bursts of just totally creative, totally intuitive movement, and then just peppering that through the whole day.
Nice. I feel like Tim Ferriss asking questions like that. Like, will you break down the specific routine of what you're doing? We're listening to so much Tim, but I do appreciate those questions.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, this is so interesting for me. I mean, I think the whole topic of rest and wintering has always been quite interesting to me, partly because it doesn't come so naturally to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd imagine that's the case for a lot of people in our culture, but um, like the image I get when you decide to not see clients at all for 2 weeks is like all of a sudden you're in this vast open space. It's like you're in the middle of a desert or something. It's just like openness, you know? And it can be a bit daunting at first. It can be a bit like, whoa, this is different. This is new. And I can imagine that just because you remove that from your life doesn't mean that you're going to have a restful 2 weeks. Like you could remove the noise, the clients or whatever the work thing is, whatever the normal routine is, but that doesn't ensure that you're going to go into a space of rest or recharge or active recovery. You could take that input away and then still make yourself busy and still stay in some sort of routine that's emulating your normal life, right? And so there is I think there's just something really interesting about that it's not like 1 + 1 = 2 in that sense. Just because you remove the thing doesn't mean that you're going to go into a rest. There does seem like there is like an active engagement sort of thing, and that for me that was like the 2-ish days of where there was tension, because I removed the thing, but I removed my work, but then I was still some kind of still in that same rhythm. I was still kind of doing my routine, and there was a very clear like something kind of gave way to something deeper. And for me, it almost feels like there's a stream. There's like a stream beneath all, but there's like a stream beneath our normal mode of operation. It's
Mm-hmm.
like we're up here and there's a deeper stream beneath. And it's like that tension area of those 2 days was like me kind of breaking through to that deeper stream.
Yeah.
And so there is this like element of, I know I'm laying a lot out here. I hope that you can find some gems, but like there's an element of like starting to recognize the stream that's there and like
Mm-hmm.
almost like faking it till you make it, in a way, like stumbling your way into that stream.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like for me at least, once I kind of like can feel that and get there, the next few days of wintering or whatnot they kind of are quite fluid. But yeah, I just think it's maybe you can riff on that, like just this interesting piece on it's not ensured that just because you remove the noise you're going to be in a space of rest, active recall. There's like an active engagement with the season, kind of. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. Before we get into that, though, I do want to hear what was the result of making it through that threshold and getting to the other side for you?
I mean, I would say the most clarity of what it is that I want to do next in my life and focus my energy on, like the most clarity that I've had in a long, long, long time.
Right.
And like really a deep nugget of wisdom for kind of the vision ahead that
Mm-hmm.
is feels quite profound.
Yeah. So that's really amazing to hear because I feel like implicit in this tension field that we have from, say, our normal routine into, say, let's call it a down regulation into a winter recess or a period of active recovery, we do have to cross that desert we have to cross some kind of threshold, and there's an element of trust and faith that something replenishing is going to be on the other side. And what I think is really interesting, and we might want to explore a little bit more now or in a future episode, is kind of this movement from, going into that territory somewhat blind and not having a system in place versus having the right system in place to be able to get to that place of clarity where you're actually able to trust the process. Like there's a conscious down regulating. And I think one of the tie-ins here, and you might want to take this in a different direction now that has been put on the table, is like you brought a lot of energy coming into this podcast, at least in our back and forth around like how profound it is to like systematize development, as if knowing that there's not enough culturally known or culturally validated ways of actively pursuing our development. And so there's some kind of system of development that is possible for us to start communicating and building scaffolding around to enter into new territories.
Yeah.
I think just to kind of land that point there, it's like the systems of active recovery, of entering into a proper winter recess, those are not well communicated in our culture. That's not a culturally validated mode of being.
Right.
So I think most people, when they attempt that, will probably not land into clarity because of the different hangups that habitualize their nervous systems, addictions, getting trapped in a television or a TikTok portal or something, and then they're
Right.
maintaining the hum of the motor and not hitting that deep place of rest. So there's a lot
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
said about encouraging that full movement through the territory.
For sure, man. There's so much here, and maybe you saw my post on Instagram about this, but I started off the post saying holiday season, more like scrolling without reason, because I think it's something that I've tracked in previous years, but it really hit home this year, this holiday season, around a bunch of family and whatnot. How much more time it seems like people are spending on phones, technology, distraction during the holiday season. And it reminds me again of this Peter Drucker quote talking about how vastly unprepared our society is for a new abundance of time. And most people, like, the holiday season is the most free time that they have throughout the entire year. And for me, when I see how much within this new free time people are just on screens, 2x what they normally are, just a crazy amount. It points to that. It points to my belief that just people don't know how to spend time. People don't know how to navigate free space and time in their life, and it's a big one. So that made me think of it. But what comes to mind as well is James Clear's quote: "You don't rise to the level of your goals; you fall to the level of your habits." And when we're talking about like these systems that are in place, when I hear about what you spent your time doing these past 2 weeks, I think about how you're someone who has things in your life that you like to do. Like, you have found things that you enjoy to do, which it sounds like such a simple thing, but for a lot of people, it's actually quite a foreign idea. Like, I have things in my free time that I genuinely enjoy doing that aren't solely scrolling on Instagram or watching a movie. Like, I have things that I like to do. And it also points, I think, to like the way that you approach practice and training, because there's also a lot of people who maybe have things that they would like to do, but it just feels like a have to. It feels like another school assignment from the teacher, and that's not fun, and that's not energizing, and that and even like just habits in general. I think a lot of people get caught relating to them in that way, and I see you as someone who is really mastered, I think the way that you relate to practice and habits, and so I think that's an important element to tie in as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Dude, you're really stoking the buffet table at this point. I feel like there's a lot of really, really amazing threads. But I know we both just listened to the Bill Gurley podcast with Tim Ferriss, and he had a lot of nuggets. And one of his was he had some kind of like passion test. And it was basically like, you're not truly passionate about something unless you're like going to choose it consistently over Breaking Bad or whatever TV or show metaphor he was using there. And that's so true. And for whatever reason, I've had a deeply enduring belief that whatever I'm doing in my free time can become the basis of what I'm having as a, say, a professional career thing. And that's just a deeply driving,
Mm.
motivating, orienting
Mm.
belief. I don't quite honestly know where it came from. Probably some cool entrepreneurial book at one
That's
point in time.
profound, man. You just
Right.
slipped that in there. That's a very profound statement.
Right. What we do in our free time can become the basis of our profession.
Yeah.
And so work in your free time with your passion. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
right. There's an implicit there's a secondary implicit idea in what you just said, and because what you're doing in your free time is probably going to be the thing that you really enjoy doing, that you're interested in doing.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
like the deep belief that you can your work, what you spend most of your time doing, can be the thing that you love to do, enjoy doing, are interested in. It's just a
Hmm.
really I think profound like core belief to hold.
Yeah, it's definitely orienting and organizing. And, when you look through that lens, then there can become a lot of free time. Everyone has a morning before they have to get to whatever they're going to get to. And,
Mm.
love it or hate it, the difference sometimes between people who are all in on their dreams and going in that direction and people who are not is the willingness to hit the alarm at 5 a.m. and get up and do 2 hours completely in your passion project on top of whatever else you're going to do. And so there is an interesting function around just like the evolutionary pressures of being in this modern moment where it's like, are you willing to work harder to ultimately get to a place where your work is more focused on what you love? I'm thinking of our dear friend Brian Tierney here, who I think inspired us both. When he came to one of the retreats and just dropped, his draft of his book, which is like
600-page.
it's just like whoa, and it's like wow, okay, so that's a lot. But then with that and I was waking up every day at 4 a.m. and he had a full time career and he has a family, and it's just like
Writing for 4 hours at 4 a.m.
right.
every day.
That's a driven, passionate human. It's like I got a
Yeah.
book inside of me.
Yeah. Totally, man. Yeah, it's making me think of something that I am thinking about a lot right now. And it points, I think, to the opportunity for new new career paths, new opportunities, new pathways in 2026. And one of the terms that comes up is like the knowledge worker. I think Tim Ferriss riffs on that quite a bit. Um, and then also, I think just like the vast realm of coaching or providing a some sort of service like that. It doesn't have to be like therapeutic coaching, but like providing some sort of service to other people. And but really the idea there is that we are the assets. Like as individuals, we are the asset. Where we go, our work moves with us, kind of thing. And so then the game is like completely investing in ourselves as the product. And again, this can look a million different ways. And the idea of active recall, I don't know why this has been so profound for me.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a whole rabbit hole, but
Let's go.
we've talked about this before, but just like how how much our culture has failed us in terms of learning how to learn. Like literally, you know, rereading and highlighting is what I would say most of us do our entire, adolescence. And that is like the last thing that science tells us, that that's how you learn. Um,
Mm.
and that's a whole other thing, also not having inspiring teachers, not doing what we want to do, having zero, for the most part, no, attuned environments that are helping us to attune to our own unique interests, curiosities, gifts, things like this.
Mhm.
Um, and and so yeah, that brings me to one of the profound insights over this 2-week wintering period for me around active recall coming from Mr. Godsey. And um, just this idea that if you take the time to practice active recall or maybe some other learning technique, and you gift this beautiful piece of insight into your long-term memory, over time, each of us are becoming these Library of Alexandrias of information that is living within us, that is related to our interests, curiosities, the skills that we are wanting to cultivate. And Bill Gurley talked about this in that podcast. It's something we've riffed on so much, like the immense opportunity that's here. We have access to any information we want. And so, yeah, I'm just feeling a lot of inspiration right now around like
Mhm.
really, really going all in on like my learning, investing in my own learning, in building the system so that it's not only one year out the other, but like it's deeply being ingrained, and it's over time. I know that all of the insights, all of my learning is compounding on top of itself and turning into this like massive scaffolding. Um, and so I feel like I kind of got sidetracked as in terms of the thread I was wanting to connect, but yeah, just this idea of the potential of what work can be, um, in 2026. And I just, I feel like the pathway of going all in on investing in your own learning and training,
Mhm.
it feels obvious.
Yeah. It's mission critical. And I do want to step into something big picture because you had this great line, holiday season, more, what was it? Holiday seasons with the
More like
scrolling.
scrolling without reason.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. It's so good. Yeah. I think for me, like one of the things I get a lot of lightning strikes around in this particular moment, and this is very much tied into going all in on ourselves, going all in on our learning process, learning how to use our free time to do something we absolutely love, is I deeply believe, or I'm more or less convinced that there's some kind of, as Elon Musk puts it, like supersonic tsunami that's like either hitting us right now or is like imminently hitting us in terms of like AI, robotics, technology, blah. And there's a lot of people who are sounding the siren around the attention economy and just the gamification of our attention and just how profoundly these AI driven systems are studying us. Every single thing that we're doing on Instagram, everything we're doing on YouTube, like completely tracked to the nth degree in regards to what is our attention being drawn to and likely how to monopolize our attention to keep us there in those places. You could call it good, you could call it evil, whatever. It's not about good or evil. It's just kind of this thing that's happening. And I know when I feel into that reality of just where people's attention is at and the doom scrolling and blah, I get super like what you're saying. I feel like that is 100% mission critical, a part of the solution, it's part of the medicine. It's a huge part of my why. And frankly, doing this kind of podcast is a part of that why, because I know for us, there's a profound tie in between the kinds of conversations we want to have, which is nurturing a real relationship that we share, that's going to nurture real relationships with other humans that share a philosophy and a way of looking at things and a way of working, and just kind of energizing that whole human project of being deeply involved in your craft and mastery. All of that is going to orient us towards the human craft of doing things that matter to us, and then linking up in the physical world to expand those crafts, to deepen those crafts, to deepen relational connections. And so to me,
Yeah.
we're in some kind of amazing 80-20 in the sense of like we're using like the best 20% of technology to leverage the 80% of how we actually want to spend our times, which I'll speak for myself, is doing things with people I love in real time and spaces where we're actively deepening our mastery and our craft for the benefit of all. And for me, when I feel into like what's happening with technology and I get super energized on exactly what you just said, which is like really looking at how we're investing in ourselves and the deep human condition of what we love and care about, and then spreading that to as many people as possible in the most effective means possible, so that in their free time, they're doing something awesome and not getting sucked into this crazy algorithmic monster that, quite honestly, I think will ruthlessly devour people's attention and get them addicted to all manner of things. It's like literally like
Yeah.
Matrix or Terminator or like Star Trek and like the coolest sci-fi future we could ever possibly have. So I am
Yeah, yeah.
passionate about it because I think we're creating the future right now.
Beautiful, man. I can feel the lightning striking through you and feel the passion. And then I feel it on my end, and it's important. And the word that the word that's coming through for me is coherence. Um, and it's something that I've been thinking about what you're speaking to, that and I certainly feel this in my experience going on YouTube and podcasts lately, is like just the amount of different channels, different people doing it is can be overwhelming at times. I think of like which person am I going to listen to and yada yada. And so I think one cool idea that I could see being beneficial is kind of selecting your information diet.
Mm-hmm.
And another way to say that would be like choosing what camps you want to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to be so rigid about it, but I do think there is something that can be nourishing and healthy around saying like, okay, these are the sources that I'm choosing to tune into, and I don't really like venture outside of that. Now, I know that you could say that you're just going to get lost in your echo chambers, but I think that I think there's something there versus just like this endless, I got this on this short and this reel and this reel and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what you're speaking to though is like this movement from, okay, maybe we're having a conversation on a podcast. Maybe there's people who listen to this and we're somehow engaged in resource sharing and exploring shared interests with listeners, things like this. And somehow that's translating into like real time, in person gatherings, training sessions. It's like translating into kind of a way of life.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really beautiful vision. And I think that's like in terms of the 80-20 of what's possible with technology, I think that's like a really concise way of seeing the 20. But there's just some tie-in for me, I guess, around like
Yeah.
actually these different like kind of tribes and communities of people that are doing these things together and in a shared field of coherence.
Yeah. No, it's definitely mission critical as well. And for me, one of the principles I think of is depth over breadth. And this is the image of you can go a mile wide, but just an inch deep, or you can find something and then go all the way, hit water, get to the well, so to speak. And for me, that principle comes from Josh Waitzkin, The Art of Learning. And that to me was one of those like, I've hit something, I've hit a human who's done something extraordinary. They have a story of life and a way of relating to life I'm deeply inspired by. So I'm going to read his book 5 times rather than read 5 other books just a little. Depth over breadth. It's like live that principle. It's like you find
Depth over breadth?
over breadth.
Breadth. I've never heard that.
Breadth. Yeah. Breadth is like
Yeah, yeah.
a mile wide.
Horizontal.
And depth is
Yeah,
vertical.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a profound principle because it's essentially, and the meditative traditions have this teaching. It's like, do you go to the spiritual flea market and study from many teachers, or do you find a teacher who you think has an authentic realization and listen closely to what they're going to say and get the authentic realization? And
Yeah.
so I do think we do need to help people get out of the flea market of all the commerce, of the millions of different podcasts you can listen to, and find some kind of camp, whether it's, find a camp, as you're saying, and then
Yeah.
stick with it. See if you can hit nourishing water. You got to stick with things to actually
Right.
find out if there's a real there.
Right. Man, this is profound. I love that we're here. I want to stay here and dive into that. And like, first of all, kudos to you for, you know, choosing to read the book 5 times versus reading 5 new books. I mean, that's the embodiment of the principle itself. And, I say that because it's something that is quite hard for me. Like this is not something that's easy for me. And maybe I can try and put some words to like what exactly is hard for me, where the tension is, might be a fun experiment and useful. I
Yeah.
think there's an interesting element of like FOMO, fear of missing out, and this, and as how that relates to like kind of there's like a rat race in our culture feeling of trying to
Hmm.
get to the top. So you're gonna go quicker, you're gonna try and do more. So like if I choose to read the same book 5 times, well then I'm gonna get behind because there's other people who are reading five books. And really just on a cultural level, how we're just so conditioned to do the thing, reach the checkbox without any. There's a lack of, I think, attention and value placed on the meat of what you got out of the thing. It's just like a checkbox oriented culture where that's lost the orientation to the process itself, which the depth over breadth really is process oriented, right? It's the meat, it's the juice that comes through like reading the book. It's not about reaching the end of the page, and then it's not about finishing books. It's about what you're getting out of the books, and that certainly seems like a thematic thing that we could
Hmm.
extract over many
Yeah.
many different domains.
Totally. Well, another way of saying it is quality over quantity. And I do really appreciate that you're trying to put words to this because it feels like there's the sense of going for something out of like a FOMO, which we could say is fear based. And then there's a finding something and loving it and going all the way in, which we could say is love or passion based. And I guess I'd
Yeah,
love for you to explore that a little bit more and try to put language to it because I see
yeah,
you
yeah,
tag into things that you love and then stay with
yeah.
them. And so I'm curious,
Right.
how do you track that for yourself?
Yeah. Well, I'm a naturally a very quick person. I do things fast, and so I think this is probably one of my big lifetime growth edges is becoming so like fully kind of process oriented, quality over quantity, and seeing that, um, which just came to mind. Was a experience I had a couple days ago. I'm reading Journey of Soul Initiation from Plotkin, which is just a dense book. It's a dense book, and I am actively working so hard to not just want to finish the book. Like it's a real-time meditation for me to be sitting down with that book, with other books as well, and to not just be wanting to read it to finish it. It's like I'm reading it to finish it, and because I want to ingest the information and integrate it in the book, but there is like a lack of, I'm truly enjoying this real-time experience of reading right now, and
Hmm.
it's not about getting to the end of the book. I'm doing this because this is enjoyable.
Yeah.
And so like that's an example.
Hmm.
But like I have these horizon moments where like this is what I want to learn, and at ChatGPT give me the five best books on this topic, and I make the grand list, and then I stack the books up next to my desk, and I'm like, boom, I'm gonna read these, I'm gonna go all in, and it's just like trying to tear through these books and whatnot. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, it really, to me, ties back to why we need to build communities or why we need to build ethical cults, we could even say, which I think is a fun sort of like edgy way to speak to that we need to create some like in-group, out-group dynamics to harness people's energy towards things that are the good, the true, and the beautiful, and communicate as a culture, at least in small pockets where the quality is rich, like what's in and what's out in regards to, hey, in this particular space, in this particular time, we don't really care if you read the whole book. Like, what was your inner experience of what you did connect with. Like what's the life force inside of you where like your center of gravity is in that book. And like knowing the work of Bill Plotkin, I'm imagining that, you know, there's something you've read in that book which is stirring inside of you in a deeper way than anything else. Or maybe there's a couple of things. And that's interesting to me. I'd rather hear about that than the other thing. So, I mean,
Right. Yeah, there does seem to be an important piece around like um, positive feedback from your experience when you do make the shift into the depth over breadth, and you take the time, and you know, kind of weather the voice within you that says you should be ingesting more, or you should read the other book. And then maybe you're talking to someone, or you're just thinking about it, and you realize how deeply you've integrated the ideas. And like, I guess over time, you know, maybe you can speak to this from your own experience. You're having like real time realizations of, oh my gosh, I went slower. I selected for quality over quantity. And I'm clearly feeling like how much more I have integrated this into my life.
yeah.
And I would just guess that over time, more of those experiences makes it easier to kind of not get lost in the trap of, you know, checking boxes and adding more to the pile.
100%. Yeah. Well, what I'm super into is the relational model of learning. Part of why I love the Mahamudra lineage stream that we both connected to is because that's explicitly a one-to-one relational learning model. And part of why I think people are really drawn to martial arts right now is that's also a relational learning model where, you know, if you're a black belt under a specific martial arts master, like that actually means something. Like you've gone through the motions, you've gotten positive reinforcement around being able to execute certain moves. There's things you know how to do. There's things that you are probably steering away from because you don't do that in jujitsu or whatever it is. So, you know, these are specific arenas where the relational import of what you've learned matters, and it matters to someone specific. It matters to your sensei, or it matters to your meditation teacher, or it matters to your friend, kind of thing. And I think that kind of positive reinforcement that you're speaking to is something that we do need to actively cultivate with real people, you know, our family members, our loved ones. It's something we need to consciously put our attention on. And I think part of why this is also important is because the alternative to that is, once again, the doom scrolling. It's the algorithms that will take as much attention as we're willing to give them. It is a sort of like non-neutral playing field, which is another theme we've touched on, which is to say, and this is actually an interesting idea I got from reading Calvin and Hobbes yesterday. The Calvin and Hobbes comic books come back for me, and it's kind of a fun little wink wink from my childhood. But Calvin and Hobbes wax philosophical in all these deeply cool ways. And Calvin has this one riff in a comic about how TV is self-validating. And it's like if you see something on TV, it becomes as seen on TV. And there's this sense that TV is its own validation, in the sense of, oh, of course, this guy or this person or this thing, it must be important. It must be cool. It must be something because it's on TV. And this is the same thing that's happened with social media. Social media is basically becoming the next TV, where, oh, it was on Facebook, therefore the event must have been cool. Or I went on vacation and I took a picture and now it's, you know, got 1,000 likes. It must have been a good moment. And it's like all of that validation is actually bullshit for the most part. It's not how they actually felt in the moment when they were on the beach. They might have felt dead inside because, you know, they're not having the real conversation they want with the person that's taking the photo. But, you know, they'll take the dopamine hit of, you know, 1,000 people they don't really know validating them on this thing. So what I'm getting at, you know, I think is pretty obvious at this point is, you know, we need, I think, as a deep sort of evolutionary necessity, like we need to find relationships which are validating and helping us put our attention on things that truly do matter to us, which is, you know, it's truly more interesting to me that, you know, you grokked something from Bill Plotkin's work that's going to change the shape of your soul direction for years to come, than that you just finished the book.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. I want to selfishly, and I think this would be interesting, I would love to hear you give I would love to hear your elevator pitch for why depth over breadth is the way,
Mm-hmm.
and the necessity of that in our time. And, this is a lot, like if you were sitting down with someone
Mm-hmm.
who knows that that's the shift that they need to make, who
Mm-hmm.
knows that this is something that they're struggling with, and they're asking you how to do that, like what advice would you give to them?
Yeah. It's a really fun question, and I feel like I do want to jujitsu you for a moment and ask
Put
sincerely.
me in an armbar.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to put you in an armbar. Why are you asking?
Partly because I am that person who like is actively trying to make that shift.
Yeah.
And I'm asking because I think this is just a massive thing that 99% of people struggle with. Like, I think it is rare, really rare in my experience, to come across people who have really gotten down the idea of depth over breadth and who are actively practicing that um, in their
Yeah.
life. And, I see you as someone like that. There's probably room to grow, but I see you as someone who's done a good job at that, like you're already speaking to. Um, so I think this topic is
Yeah.
mission critical, important in our time. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Totally. Let's go a little deeper. Let's like have some fun here because I hear
cool.
you. 99% of or some amount of people are struggling with applying this principle. That's probably true to some extent. But you also said because I'm trying to get better at that myself. And just for
Oh
the
yeah.
sake of fun,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can
what
personalize it.
yeah, why are you trying to get better at that for yourself?
Um, yeah, I love the jujitsu. Thank you. Um,
There's a deep purpose. This thing will be
yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'll just kind of try and find my way into it.
Let's go.
I think I've always like, yeah, I've really admired people who just like don't seem to have any problem in the world with like, what do I read or what do I choose to do or what do I choose to listen to, and they just like get caught in these. I have a close friend I'm thinking of actually, but they like just get caught. They just, oh, I'm reading this book and it's so good, I'm lost in this book, now I'm lost in this book, now I'm lost in this book. And um I think for me, one, it's like I'm always trying to solve problems. And this quote of like, you overestimate what you can do in a day and underestimate what you can do in a year comes to mind. But it's like, I'm the person with like 5 books next to my desk every day that I'm trying to read at the same time, that I'm trying to finish. And it's like all kind of working towards this like end goal of something that I'm trying to get to. That if I just, read all these books and do all these things, and then it's super paralyzing. And I have this like pretty active experience of like having paralysis, there's decision paralysis around what book I'm going to read or what podcast I'm going to listen to, because I have 5 on the queue that I want to listen to. And then I get 2 minutes into one and then I think I've chosen the wrong one. Then I go to a different one and then I go to a different one. And
Hmm.
like, it's a really big, I think, part of my current growth edge that I'm wanting to get good at. And for me, there's elements of trust that come in, like self-trust, like trusting in the process of how things are finished. Like, you put down a book a year ago and then you pick it up a year later and you finish it and it was the perfect time to read it. Like trusting in the timelines of those sorts of things.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
because I can track my experience in the past few years, and it's worked out. It's always worked out. And so for me, though, there is this like really important piece around self trust that this is the book that I want to read in this moment. And trusting in that interest, that kind of inner compass, that it's
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Totally, man. All right. Well, I want to try to cover a couple things because this is juicy. But I think if I heard correctly, and you can get in here and correct me if I'm misrepresenting you,
Yeah.
but I think one of the things I heard right at the beginning of what you were sharing is that you have this experience of maybe imagining me or someone else where they know what they're doing and they know why they're doing it. They're focused on this book or that book, and that there's this assumption that they're enjoying that process. Does that
Hmm.
feel correct? Like,
For sure, man. It, I can, comparison is definitely there. Like even to someone like Godzi, for example, like the way that I perceive him and my friend that I had in mind, it's like, you know, they're reading this book, then they're reading this book, and I'm enjoying this and I'm enjoying that. And like just but this
yeah,
like paralysis, I see them as like so clearly trusting in it's like yeah, this trust piece is huge. Like they're trusting in the way that things are going. They're trusting in what they're drawn to
yeah,
be reading. They're
yeah,
trusting the fact that they picked up a new book today and that there's not something wrong with that. And I just to tie in and
yeah,
the other kind of layer here for me is like this fear of doing it wrong.
mhm.
So like I'm gonna somehow do it wrong, and then I'm not gonna get enough out of this, or I'm gonna read the wrong book, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that sort of
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna kind of make a statement here about what I observe, I think, in some of this comparison. And this could be right or this could be wrong. Take it with a grain of salt. But what I hear in this moment is a certain type of dehumanizing pedestaling. And then it's an assumption about the struggle that isn't happening for Godzi or me or someone else. And what I think could be meaningful to like really hone in on is, at least in my experience of say like choosing a book or going all in on something in the process, is that it's actually a movement into even more struggle, even more contention, even more discomfort, even more ambiguity. And I feel like this is an important projection to check. If indeed I'm right, and there is a projection here that's like pedestaling a certain kind of process or how it feels for other people, I think it is an important assumption or projection to check, because in a way it's not empathetically attuned to how much that person, let's just take Godzi as an example, how much
Yeah.
that person is struggling, all of their fears, all of their doubts, all of their insecurities, that assuredly, we'll leave Godzi aside, assuredly most humans, unless they're sociopathic, are having these experiences. And so I
Mm.
think there's something here around like humanizing your process, humanizing anyone else's process, and seeing how like if someone is going all in on a book or all in on a topic, sorry, there might be more bliss, there might be more
Yeah.
joy, but there's also likely even more struggle. Like Waitskin talks about this. He says he trains about 4.5 hours a day. Assuredly, I think he's probably experiencing more pain on a daily basis than I am. He talks about that with his pain tolerance is higher. Is that enjoyable? Is that not enjoyable? It's a little bit of like it depends on like if you're in the right arena or not. So I don't know. I'm putting out some different things. I'm curious how this is all landing for you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's for sure landing. Um. Yeah, it's for sure landing, and it's making me. Yeah, what came up for me as you were talking is some of these like deeper beliefs that I have that one, you have to finish a book front to end or a podcast or whatever it is. Like that's how you have to do it. You read page one to the last page, front to beginning. Um, Even like I had beliefs before, I don't have this so much anymore, that you shouldn't like change books in the middle of reading. Like if you're doing that, then you're distracted or you're whatever it is. Um, or like conditioning from school where if you're reading a book then you need to outline the entire book, the main points, versus like noticing what lights you up about it. And so yeah, I just feel like the really deep thread for me here is just trusting like my process of doing things,
Yeah.
you know and like what if I made the assumption that there was nothing wrong with it at all, and I can have 5 books on my desk and I get to choose when I sit down what do I want to read. And if I want, I can experiment with things, but
Hmm.
yeah, and it's just yeah, continuing to come back to that, and
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is a huge meta theme for like everything we're talking about in this like whole 10 episode series, which is like deconditioning how we were role modeled things. I grew up with the exact same idea of like you finish a book front to back, it's like it's not valid unless you did it a certain kind of blah 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 way, and then you need to regurgitate a point from every single chapter, and it's like mind-boggling. And then you listen to someone like Seth Godin. I listen to someone like Seth Godin. He says that if he doesn't find an idea compelling within the first 1 or 2 pages of what he's reading, he just tosses it aside. He's buying books constantly, and it's just like that's a completely different approach of someone who's wildly successful, who writes every single day, has written multiple books, and it's just like,
yeah,
oh, if you don't find an idea that's bringing you to life like more or less immediately, then you just already on to the next. It's like
yeah,
genius, right? It's like a completely different mindset around the value of information.
yeah, yeah. I love that. Naval kind of has a similar style with reading, I think. What's interesting for me is like if I'm halfway through with a book and I feel like I don't want to keep reading it, I'm just not enjoying it. There's like this fear that, but what if there's something in that second half that I'm gonna miss? Like, what if there's a insight? What if there's a piece and it's gonna be incomplete? Um, she's
Yeah.
just so it's interesting to feel into that for me.
Well, this is where life is just so full of ambiguities. There might be, there might not be.
Yeah,
It might matter, it might not matter.
yeah,
And for some reason, I keep thinking because I think we've been both on a little bit of a Tim Ferriss kick lately. He's just awesome. I love Tim Ferriss. I think he's doing a lot of great things. But one of the titles of his book, after doing I don't know how many hundreds of podcasts, was Tribe of Mentors. And I think that's a really nice idea of just, there's different people that we discover along the way, and they role model certain things to us. Some people we're going to take a lot from and leave some, and some people we're going to take just 1 or 2 things and leave most of it. But, I feel like in the self exploration phase, as we're in discovery and, as we're learning about what it takes to do what we're up to, there's going to be all sorts of people who role model different things. Some of it will be useful and some of it won't. Some of it will serve for a time and then we'll discard it. And then some of it, we'll probably look back at a certain point and we'll see like, oh my gosh, I missed huge opportunities that, conceptually I just didn't have a mental map for, or, it just wasn't even apparent to me that I could have done that thing or place or time with, and so, I do think there's something. Oh man, this is a whole nother yarn on the active recall thing. There's something about like recognizing our constraints and I think loving our constraints, being in the tension between being limitless and limited. But then the piece I want to actually try to tie in with active recall, because I think that as a mode of learning is so, so important, which is like, I'm going to learn something. And then if I repeat it to someone else, then, through that repeating process, I'm going to bring it deeper into my memory. Sort of like the axiom of like see one, do one, teach one, or something like this. I really feel like, our memories, I can speak for myself, like my sense of memory is really limited. I don't have a quote unquote great memory. I feel like I remember a handful of things that are important to me. But what I take refuge in is I feel like I found things in my life that are really worth remembering. Like I don't feel a sense from, say, having read The Art of Learning, or I'm thinking of Mahamudra and stuff like that is filling up my cup so much. Like if I can genuinely remember most of the pointing out instructions, I'm good. It's like that is so valuable. It's so much more valuable than say being able to like flip through most of these books and like remember the whole story. It's just like there's too many stories. It's like I can only remember so many things. And my prayer is, my hope is, and my vision is to be like a good artifact of a handful of things that are worth remembering.
man, I think we need to end there. That was a mic drop. Really a mic drop. Thank you for that. It's so beautiful and it's so refreshing to hear you say that, to be honest, and to just hear you fully claim that and own that. Like, I'm not, I don't need to be a jukebox of facts. Like, you know, I have been privileged to be exposed to some really meaningful things. And like, those are the ones I cherish the most. So yeah, I can really feel the permission slip to, yeah, embody depth over breadth, and to
Yeah.
not, not get lost in the like cultural craze of more, more, more.
Yeah. Nice.
Escaping the rat race, really.
Yeah. 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 Amazing, man. Do you want to do a quick lightning round?
I don't really know what you mean by that, but
You're like, what is he saying?
I don't know what I'm getting myself into.
I know we're closing shop.
Is this where we take our shirts off and
Yeah, show our bellies to the world. Look at my belly. I just had this idea. This is totally spontaneous and random. We may or may not want to ever do this again. But you know how like sometimes at the end of podcasts, people do like a lightning round of questions where it's just like answer this question as fast as you possibly can.
yeah, yeah. This is
Like a
fun.
lightning round. So my lightning round question is what is one habit that you're pumped on right now that you know you're all in on for the next, let's call it month?
There's a couple. I'll just say learning. My learning systems, like my system of active recall, and for more context, like I'm using a digital system called Obsidian, and so for me, like putting reps in of information ingestion into active recall, into creating something with that, I'd say that's like the big one that I'm pumped about. And reading goes hand in hand with that habit. So
Nice. I'm thinking I've got a couple more lightning questions now. I'm just like generating
yeah,
them.
yeah.
One more. What's one trend in 2026 that you're tracking?
Mm.
That's fun.
Like that I'm intuiting is the wave is upon us.
Yeah, what is your inner Rafiki feeling for 2026? One trend.
What for whatever reason this is what's um I would be curious to hear yours first after mine, but um I think we're gonna start to see a lot more people within our kinds of community that probably will be listening to this start posting on Instagram.
Mm. All right. Up and to the right on Instagram posting.
Yeah.
All right. And then
It's
final
kind of I
one.
feel like that's a lame prediction, but that's a lame trend. I don't know what else has.
Well, it makes sense for your world, right? Because, I think people in your ecosystem, at least I've witnessed, I can think of three or four people off the top of my head who are awesome, who you've gotten into inspiring posting. So makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Tracks.
I would also just say like I think young people diverging from mainstream pathways is going to kind of hit a exponential growth curve
Yeah. Nice.
in the next year.
All right. One more clickbait lightning round. We'll get a little, some grit for the algorithm here. Um,
Yo, throw this in the thumbnail.
Yeah, throw it in the thumbnail. Who is someone in the zeitgeist, whether YouTube, podcasting, popular media, that you think is just totally getting it wrong?
Like someone kind of that's like in our sphere a little bit.
Whatever sphere, you got to call someone out,
Like I
man.
wouldn't say like Donald Trump.
I
Like
mean, you
not
could.
like that.
You could.
You answer this first, and then I'll go. I don't have
Jake
anyone off.
Paul.
I don't have anyone off the top of my head.
Okay. You want me to answer that question?
Yes, I do.
I am just actually going to go with Jake Paul. It pisses me off that there's so much money in that stupid boxing ring, and it's like, maybe I haven't caught wind of it, but what is Home Dog doing with that money that's for the benefit of people?
Yeah.
It's like I want to see him, throw down on like Mr. Beast style, like building wells in Africa or something. It's like, show me something you're doing that gives you like the validity of taking that much of people's attention, time, and money and doing something for the benefit of all.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I agree with that answer. No one really is coming off the dome to the top of my head. Um, yeah, no one's there.
It's a totally random question. You're too deeply immersed in loving kindness and compassion to think of someone to call out, bro.
Yeah. No, I think some people are really good at the lighting style questions, and they're like, boom, boom, and I don't know if I've ever had that gift. Um,
Yeah, I can see you're thinking deeply.
yeah, yeah. Look, there's a laundry list of people I could say who are off kilter, but I guess I was trying to find someone a bit more interesting.
Give me one.
I mean, like Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate. I
Yeah,
have no
yeah.
idea who that is.
Really? This is like the the guy who's like, I'm gonna make a ton of money. Uh, Bro, you need to look this dude up. He's like he's the worst, honestly. He's just like the epitome of everybody listening probably knows Andrew Tate. But yeah, he's just like preaching about masculinity and it's the worst.
Mm.
And
Mm.
yeah,
All right.
pause there.
Well, I don't know if we
I'm
want to
glad
land.
I'm glad to say that I'm not good at that.
Yeah, no. Well, good job. Good job. Your heart's in the right place.
I wanted to find someone like in more like the spiritual community. That's more interesting because I know that there definitely are people who I see are like, damn,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not it. It's not it.
Well, I don't know if we want to get good at this because I don't think this will be our.
We'll be better next time.
We'll have some people to throw under the bus.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think that's our style.
Anyway,
All right.
I think that's about it for today. Episode 10 in the books. Great to be here with you, man. If anyone's
So
still
good.
listening, drop that like, hit that subscribe button,
Share with a friend.
share with us.
Yeah.
How was this for you?
Yeah, hit us up.
All right. Until next time, man.
Woo woo.